Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. We are joined once again by Brit. Brit, how's it going, man?
I'm doing really good this morning, Raj. How are you?
Yeah. We got we're recording this fun holiday weekend, currently in process, but both of us have made the time. Thank you for signing up. We are going to be talking about the French today. So the faction review time has come, and folks may have heard, obviously, you're the head honcho, Strategicon of Saga. So you played them at the North America Grand Championship, and there's kind of you did a great review of kind of how everything went there. So we were looking for somebody, and you stepped up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like I said, it's a fun warband, and I really enjoyed getting to learn it. So always good to talk about them.
Yeah, it's definitely unique warband for Saga. As we'll see, the Hearthguard configuration is totally viable, which is unusual. But what kind of drew you to playing them initially? And I don't think this wasn't your first chivalry faction, was it?
No, so I had made kind of the free companies as I've kind of done the. I did them for the paint challenge. And so I'd made the free companies. It was kind of a goof USA Knights, and I wanted to make a really historical army. And so I decided, who better than doing the French? And I wanted to do a big, beautiful display. And so it was really more a painting challenge for myself than it was anything else. And so I kind of walked in, didn't really worry about what the board could do or things like that, which I had to figure it out. But really, it turned into being a painting challenge. I wanted to build a beautiful display. And that's what kind of leaned me into playing the French, because they're probably the most iconic, minus maybe like English and French be the most iconic in this book. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't think folks can see this particular display board. Is up on the wall? So there's three.
It's not on the
three
wall.
of them behind you, or four currently. So if anybody's wondering, those are display boards back there. So
Yep.
I think we mentioned before, that's like a great idea, getting them on the wall. I still got to try to do that myself. But yeah, you might make sure you find a stud or two for hanging that one. You know, the drywall anchors don't seem sufficient for that big boy.
See, I built like a whole castle. Printed out, like 3D printed a whole castle. It was like seven reels of filament to print all of the stuff I put on there. So it was very big, very full, lots of walls, castles. So I built a whole siege scene, and that's what I really wanted to do. And the French, they're the coolest to paint for it, you know. So 100 Years War, it's like perfect.
That's cool. All right. So did you just use I'm trying to think of the actual models. Were those the Perry plastics for that, or
what I did is I used the Reconquer Designs. Since he has kind of the Iberian idea, so it's kind of that invasion of Castile theme is what I wanted to go through, so I could paint Goosklin Bertrand. I can't. I hope I'm not butchering that name. All your French viewers are going to hate me.
Yeah, I can think of the spelling right now, but I don't have any.
I'm
not
so
sure what the letters
thing,
would produce in the French language is a mystery to me.
So de Goosklin was a very well-known leader of like French and free companies and things like that, and so that was actually, so I went with Reconquer Designs because they have him, and they're beautiful sculpts, super fragile, but the entire army I did was out of Reconquer Designs.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's take a look at the warband, the kind of two versions of it, and then we'll jump into the battle board.
Yep.
All right. So the first up here, I did not cut out the name. I think it's just like the feudal. What's its official title?
Feudal French.
French?
Feudal and the retinue companies.
Okay.
Feudal and retinue companies.
Okay. So the feudal one here, basically the difference we'll see is the levies and equipment. So for the feudal, the warlord, hearthguards, and warriors can be mounted. They can be on foot if they want, and a unit of Pavis warriors if you dig it, and then the levies with crossbows or bows. And then I'll just jump to the other one just for contrast purposes. So no levies here. The warlords Hearthguard and Warriors can be mounted again. The Hearthguards and Warlord can be equipped with Barding. Your Warriors then become the bowmen, and then there's like no crossbows. I just noticed this. There's no crossbows at all.
There's no crossbows
in this one. If they're trying to emulate the English there for a little tiny stretch or something, trained bowmen. I don't know the history.
Yeah, the idea is that it's like a later when they became more professional. So it's no levy because it's a more professional army.
But okay. So the difference here, if you like the barding option, you would go with the retinue. Otherwise, if you like levy crossbows, and I never met a guy in Saga who didn't like levy crossbows. So I think the prior one is probably the one people would default to. I guess that I would recommend if you're starting out with the French, probably the levy crossbow version. I believe this was what you were using at
so I
big
used
show.
So I used the feudal instead of the ordnance, because the ordnance, which I'd say either one's fine, right? Getting barding is not bad in this age because then you're actually harder to shoot, and so you can take kind of the mounted if you want, and I don't think they're terrible. Just losing that levy crossbow is pretty tough.
The barding's good. It kind of gives you some options, as we'll see. Specifically, the Hearthguard barding is not really a big downside necessarily, with an ability or two on this board. So so the retinue one, that's the one I did when I did. If you're going to do the all Hearthguard thing, this is the one to take, just to give yourself the variety. So your version was 5 points of Hearthguard and a unit of levy crossbow. Is that right?
It was. It was.
So I think I think that's a good place to start. It's less models, than trying to throw in some warriors. But I don't think adding a point or two of warriors is going to go wrong necessarily. And maybe we can chat about that once we've taken a look at everything. But this is one of those where there's a few warbands out there where it's just, you can kind of just take what you want. The Pagan Peoples is one where, sure, you want to do lots of levy, take it. You want to do warrior bow, take it. You want to try the different Hearthguards, take it. It's all, it's all good. A good board, it's a good board for just taking whatever you want. So, but as we'll see, there's kind of Hearthguard and hero only abilities, just out the wazoo on this particular board, which is going to encourage the Hearthguard play like no other warband. And we'll just get to it. Up top looks the same, so we'll just jump down to the first item here. Feat of arms. You can use any die for melee or shooting. Add an automatic hit to the hit you inflict, or 2 if you are using a rare. So this one's tough for me. Do you get to put the dice on here much, or are you always doing it, or what do you think of this ability?
So I would say Feat of Arms is a kind of a unique one. So I would say when you actually kind of balance this one, the two different options in the warbands, if I'm running Warrior Bow, an auto hit when I'm only shooting 4 times per single point, it suddenly becomes a little more powerful. Late game, so I will say in the beginning of a game, if I'm using levy crossbows, like my standard build being 5 points of Hearthguard, 1 point of crossbow levy, this becomes better late game, right? When I'm trying to close the game out and you got to get a hit on like a Warlord or a Resilience unit or a Hearthguard unit, it's like usually a lot of Hearthguards left late in the game. Suddenly this thing starts gaining more ground later in the game, because I might be down to like 4 or 5 or 6 levy, and now I'm only shooting 2 or 3 or 4 times, and now suddenly I'm able to kind of add an auto hit, or you're just guaranteeing a good shot on something. So in the beginning of the game, if I have an extra dice and all I'm going to do is shoot, maybe. Late game is where I will even say the rare sometimes finds itself, is if I need to shoot and put 2 auto hits into something. It's good, right? There's no other way to gain shooting bonuses on this board. And so this is kind of your way if you're going to use warrior bow in the ordnance list. It's good because you can't kind of punch. You don't have that +1 if you're using just regular bow. So it's good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Good point. Yeah, on turn 2, when you're like charging in, putting all your dice down, you're like, you look at this, you're like, that's not. I'm going to put the dice somewhere else, get something better. But at the end of the game, you're right. You're like, got to get a dice here to, especially when they're down to like, there's a lot of situations where there's like one guy left. And you got to do like a double move to get there. He's going to spend your fatigue. You only got 5 attacks.
Yeah.
He's closing range. You just know it's not going to go through. So just having an automatic hit on that last Hearthguard or Warrior or something. And the interesting thing is the shooting aspect of this, because not many warbands have shooting buffs like this. And it's actually the French are one of them. And it's usually the other warbands with bows typically seem to be the ones with the shooting buffs. But we'll take it, and nothing wrong with the auto hit. If you play Saga for any length of time, you will appreciate an auto hit when you can dish it out.
Yeah.
All right. Now here's another one that kind of early game isn't as great, but late game just gets better and better here. So I'm going to have to look at these abilities here if that's a reoccurring theme here, but it certainly is with Panoply. Uncommon die for your Hearthguards only. Reroll your attack and defense dice, which score 1s, or 1s and 2s if your unit has lost a casualty since the start of the game. So on that opening wave, assault there, rerolling 1s is fine, but once the battle is joined, then it's 1s and 2s. So, would you still use this for just charging in for that first attack here? Does rerolling 1s tasty enough for you?
I would say a lot of times I found myself using this more defensively, and this maybe is we'll talk about like my play style. And I think the French, I tend to use more foot. But when you're mounted, especially when you're mounted, you can't close ranks. And so this does work really well. I'll say this, maybe this kind of speaks to my build, is I always have a point of mounted and then the rest are foot. So I prefer foot for this warband, which is kind of the play style. The book talks about like there's three play styles, which play to the historical French. And I prefer kind of more of a foot with like a singular threat that if I need to kind of jump across the table, I can. And this actually really helps that mounted Hearthguard unit, which is always going to take casualties. That's what it's designed to do. And so 1s and 2s aren't bad, right? If I closed ranks, re-rolling 1s and 2s means I'm now re-rolling, right? I save on a 4, so now I'm re-rolling 2/3 of the dice that miss, basically. Because the only thing I can't re-roll at that point or doesn't score a success
is when
you
roll. You and your opponent are just like with bated breath, like, how many 3s is he going to roll?
How many 3s am I going to roll? So, I mean, it's good. I would say I don't use it a lot, but it's because as we get to the rest of the board, we'll maybe talk about like my play style a little bit more, what I see I like on this board more. It's not a bad play if I have the extra dice, like you said, on a charge. It could save you a Hearthguard. But often when I'm charging with Hearthguard, my goal is to hit as hard as I can. And set some other plays up. So really the Hearthguard kind of go in and set some other plays up and do some other work. But saving them is always good. So like I said, I prefer to use this more on the defense, especially when that mounted Hearthguard's charged, lost a guy on the charge, and now they can re-roll 1s and 2s because they can't close ranks. So they get to re-roll, kind of what is it at that point to be half of their misses because they save on 5s and 6s. So
yeah, cool.
It's not bad. So
yeah, and it gives an interesting, kind of a strategic or tactical element here, because I don't know if we're going to bury the lead, but there's an ability later on, as we'll see, where all the Hearthguards can gain resilience. So it's kind of up to you if you're running, this heavy Hearthguard build, whether you take the casualties or not. So it kind of encourages you to kind of like maybe hold off on using that, because you've got this other element here. Well, if I just take the casualty now, then later on I'm going to get this benefit or this boon with this ability here. So it kind of adds an interesting element to that decision making. And one thing I do seem to do is whenever there's like a reroll ones ability, like I'm always like a disproportionate amount of effort is spent into getting a enemy unit down to armor 2, so you can at that point it's like rerolling all your misses,
all your misses,
just once they hit. So I seem to like whether it's wise or not, just setting the play up just so I can go in and feel good, because invariably I should miss 1 out of 6, but it's always like seems to be 1 out of 4 or something when you're dropping the hammer. 12 attacks, you're like going down. You're like, oh, all right, there's 5 1s in here, so already this isn't going to plan. So this one's good.
Yep, and one last note, really quick, and you've actually mentioned this before, for Panoply. A lot of times, since I'm running a Hearthguard heavy build, I'm leading with my Warlord, which this board, as we maybe talk about, is this age's Warlord board.
Yeah.
You're going to pull Hearthguard off to keep your Warlord alive. The Warlord is the most important piece for me and my army. He leads from the front. I want him to soak as many wounds as he can, but I have 5 points of Hearthguard around him. So in case something goes really bad, or he just takes a really big hit, sometimes I'll take one guy out of a unit, and now you've met conditions for Panoply to be 1s and 2s.
Yeah,
and so
that's a good way to do it. Yeah, you could even you just want to do this, but you can see, he's surrounded by 3 units or whatever. He's charging into some 12 pack of enemy warriors, completely loaded up. So you're like, well, I'm going to take some.
You're going to take
some hits here, one way or another. You could be like, all right, casualty from this unit, casualty from this unit, casualty from this unit, and if they're 5 or 6 to start, you still got 4 or 5 Hearthguard. They're all triggered the conditions for the superior Panoply play. Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. I had not thought of
so it. That's the last little tidbit. I've heard you mention it, and that's a great way I look at it. So,
all right, cool. All right, so you mentioned the Warlord here, and this one is basically for him. Choose a friendly, non-mercenary hero. So that's going to be the Warlord, unless you're playing some fun scenario or something. Common or uncommon die.
Too, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Until the end of the turn.
That's go ahead.
What is there for the legendary? Can you take another hero that would
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in too much on that. Yeah, but they're all heroes. So like that's the thing, is that I was like, why is this wording so kind of wonky?
Yeah.
And it's meant for guys that play with legendaries too, because then any of the legendaries can use this ability. So it kind of allows any of the heroes, whether you take, and there's like 3 very classic French ones: Joan of Arc, de Gouselin, and then there's one more in there, and I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. But it allows not just the Warlord, it allows the heroes who are Warlords in a sense to use knighthood. So
got it. Good deal. Mystery solved. Till the end of the turn, each time this hero takes a part in a melee or shooting attack, they automatically cancel number of hits equal to their resilience value. So again, that would be, we have to keep it open because this could apply to a legendary. I'm assuming some of them are resilience 2, or even better. It's orders reaction. So you could pop this for like an active Warlord turn, and we'll see. There's definitely some active Warlord opportunities here, or the opposite, where you pop it on the opponent's turn, and I kind of got to see. In our game, if somebody's got multiple shooting units and they're trying to plink, completely eliminates the plinking for the most part. So got kind of two ways to play it, I guess. Are you attempting to use it one way or the other? Do you have the dice for this ability?
So, I mean, the beauty is it's a common. So, like I said, it kind of shows up. Like I said, this board sometimes, and this maybe speaks to the deeper, this board actually likes a lot of commons, which in a weird way, like when you run a lot of Hearthguard, you want your uncommons for your levy to be able to shoot. But most of the abilities minus kind of the big abilities kind of let you use just about anything, which is nice. So knighthood, I use it if it's going to be a big Warlord round, if it's like maybe late round and I'm the last one to go. And I still have some dice, which often most games is kind of comical as it is. I have 6 dice all the way down the wire. Because you have Hearthguard, so there's like one Hearthguard left everywhere, and you still have a bunch of dice.
Yes, yeah.
And so knighthood kind of is good on the assault because when you charge with the warlord, you always take that one little hit that just kind of like, now I end the melee with 2 fatigue. And so this is a really good way sometimes to go, oh, that one little hit that levy unit generated doesn't matter. So I can hit that unit and only end with 1 fatigue, then charge again. I'm going to come in with a 2nd fatigue, but it doesn't matter. And then I'll end with 3, and then we'll talk about another ability we can use. But it kind of guarantees that also, that fact that I have the warlord out front, I usually like to use my warlord to screen, as weird as that is. Defensively, this is really good because it stops that, right? The way you kill a warlord, you just shoot him 3 times and bye. You kind of just shoot, do something a little ticky-tacky, charge with a little crappy unit that's left, and your warlord's gone. This, if I'm putting my warlord in a defensive position in front of my warband that's not a great position, this is a great ability to stop all of that little stuff, so that you can't cycle charge him, you can't just shoot him 2-3 times to kill him, because if you kill the French warlord, the French are really going to struggle. So I actually use this quite a bit, especially mid-game when the warlord's like really in bad positions, and I use it defensively most, but offensively it's really good too.
That makes sense. And if you're doing that kind of the heavy Hearthguard build and everything's got resilience, which we'll get to, in some weird ways the warlord becomes like the most appealing target just thinking back to our game, about just kind of moving the needle and trying to limit, on your turn, that if I can exhaust the warlord, I'll only be charged once versus multiple times. Just one nasty charge versus 1, 2, or 3 nasty charges. So, even though he's surrounded by Hearthguard, the warlord does become a target, as you say. So, having this ability up is pretty good. And I'll just say it says cancel a number of hits. So I have played this where you cancel casualties equal to their resilience value, which is a different thing. It becomes very, very, very good.
It's on the front end, not on the back end.
Yeah. So if you take 2 hits from your opponent, they hit you twice, then you roll 1 defense dice against the 1 hit that goes through. You don't roll 2 defense dice and then cancel the casualty after the fact. So I made that mistake in my very first game. So just wanted to clarify. All right. Now, going down to tenacity here, which is an ability you can use whatever you want on melee or shooting reaction. Gain 2 defense dice at the end of the melee or shooting attack. If your unit hasn't taken any casualties, take 1 of your available Saga dice. 2, if you used a rare, roll it and place it on your board. So 2 defense dice is fine, nothing bad there. But it's that second part there, that Saga die economy, you got to replacing a die is quite huge. There's kind of well, I don't know where that thought was going, but So I believe this is one you always want loaded up, I think, right?
This is in every round. If you're not loading this every round, I don't want to maybe make too much of I don't know if you're running the French the right way, because this does help that economy, right? I run my French with 6 dice.
Yeah, pays for itself.
Talk about why exactly right. And we can talk about later why I run 6 dice, and there's a couple theories on it. But tenacity becomes a way to start getting more dice, and if they're shooting the warlord, or as we'll talk about later, your Hearthguard can gain resilience. So you got to get to control when do you take a casualty, when do you not, right? And so tenacity allows you to gain 2 defense dice, which is good, right? So somebody shoots into you 2 defense dice, you might save your way through it. You might take 1 casualty. Well, if you have resilience, you now don't take a casualty, and you get to roll your dice, which means you get to roll it. And oftentimes I either find myself reloading tenacity. You can't play it twice in a round, and you can't load it twice in a round. But if I loaded it in my round and then it's your round, I can reload it, which I can't replay it. So sometimes if there's a lot of things happening, it just goes to combat bonus, which isn't bad, right? Getting 2 defense dice, and then for the next shooting attack, let me get 1 more defense dice. It's pays for itself. But if I use the rare, which sometimes I do, if you have a windfall of rares, it's not a bad place. Because many a times, and I kind of joked when I run it, sometimes you get a random rare out of this, which just makes the
Just
opponent
another,
life
just
even
another
worse.
crack. Yeah.
And I can need maybe sometimes if I have the abilities I want my rares on, now I get a combat bonus with 2 defense dice. So suddenly I get to play tenacity basically twice, right? 2 defense dice and put a rare up in combat bonus, get 2 more defense dice. And it really kind of helps you survive through all the plinking attacks, right? If somebody's going to shoot, or little charge, you can kind of just stop them. So tenacity is a way to increase your dice economy. It's solid because it's any dice, and if you put a rare, you get to re-roll 2 dice, which is perfect. So it's in every round, every single round, it's going to fire, and it's going to help. It's going to help the French suddenly kind of have good dice economy back into the game. So,
Yeah, this ability, it's awesome. You got to be careful putting a rare on here, because that's when the mojo comes to bite you in the butt. When your opponent will get all hits and you'll fail them all, and one will go through. Right.
Every single time, I not every time, but I would say probably, and maybe this is just confirmation bias happening.
Yeah, you definitely remember.
When I play the rare, you remember them because it's like I play the rare and then I take one little cash and you're like, come on, man. Like you only hit me twice and I didn't save a single thing. Or you hit me one time and I didn't save it. I don't know how that happened, or I have a whole bunch of combat, a bunch of defense dice. And I still didn't manage to save my way out of this, right? You hit me once and I have 3 dice and I didn't save it. Now I don't get to roll my 2 dice. So it feels like it happens every time with the rare. But
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into it, but I will say, so you point out correctly, in Saga, you can basically load the dice onto an ability once per turn, and you can trigger, like spend the dice on an ability once per turn. And there's official language that goes along with that. But so an ability like this, where you're using the Saga dice in the middle of a turn, there's a potential there to kind of do things incorrectly, and people are doing stuff on the fly. There's a chance there, but so the key thing is, like if it's your turn, you're going in, you loaded it up on your turn, you're fighting a melee on your turn, and you really want to use it. You can kick it off. You've met the requirements or whatever. So you cannot. You've loaded it.
Can't reload it
this turn, and you've spent it this turn. So both of those stop you from doing it. So that die, you would have to put it on a different ability. Now the confusing thing too is you kind of need to track those other abilities. Like if you put this on the auto hits or something. So and even on your opponent's turn, it's a little easier where you could just if you just think to yourself, I'm always going to spend this on my opponent's turn, then you can always send it back to tenacity, and you can't trigger it again, but you can. So it might be, I don't know, it's kind of confusing, an additional marker or something. Some people can mentally kind of keep track of this, but some people might need some help. But then the other thing too then is, like, we go to auto hits. You could have triggered that on your opponent's turn, and you can reload the dice back up, but you won't be able to trigger it a second time on your opponent's turn. So there's just pay attention to kind of how you're cycling these dice through. So a lot of times it doesn't matter, but sometimes usually it's towards the end of the game and something really specific needs to happen where you're like, okay, I'm going to take this tenacity dice and do something else with it because I need something to happen. So just PSA there. If what I was saying there is just very confusing to you, just go back to that little section in the start of the book, the orders phase part, and read through it, and hopefully it'll make sense. But now, not a lot of rules in Saga that come up, but just because of the timing on the Saga dice, it kicks out these additional considerations. So can run into trouble, but if nobody's paying attention, nobody cares, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's fair. You're just having some fun, man.
Yeah, if you're just having fun,
There's a very
don't sweat it. Yeah.
there's a very specific thought, and I think that's a really good way to point it out. So be aware of how you're loading and when you want to play it, because that's one thing I will say I do pay attention to. When do I want to play this to reload this ability? If it's the last attack you're going to do, I might reload tenacity in your turn, because then I can have it basically ready for the next turn. So yeah, there's a lot of little things. This board kind of gets actually quite a few of the little small rules that are quite complicating. So
all right. Well, let's go down to last one in the line here. Flying Wedge, common plus rare equals happiness for Brit. Activate up to 3 units for a charge. They each get 3 bonus attack dice in the ensuing melee here. And so, yeah, this ability, it's got a lot of attention. It's pretty tasty. So not... so on this... Yeah, this is, you get 9 bonus attack dice, essentially. 3 charges for two dice here. 1 is a rare. But that's pretty good. That's pretty good in the game of Saga, especially in Chivalry.
It sure is.
Just kind of the abilities and attacks, power and stuff has kind of been tuned down a little bit. So just getting those 3, like essentially 9 attack dice, that's pretty wild here. But you know, when we played, you weren't always necessarily loading this up first thing. So give us your thoughts on this one.
So I will say, first off, love the ability. Super cool. It's a multi-activate. So as we talked about, there's not a lot of multi-activates in Chiv.
That's another thing.
There's not. So you get a multi-activate, but it is charge, right? So it's not just a multi-activate in that sense. It's a multi-charge. And then you do get 9 bonus attack dice. So as I was kind of going through my lumps with this board, and it took me a lot of lumps with this board to kind of figure out what I liked in the play style. Flying Wedge often doesn't get loaded early, which I think a lot of people think, oh, you get the rare, you put it here. And I often found myself really leaning on the Warlord and like 1 or 2 Hearthguard units. Okay. And so early game, what I ran into is I would charge 3 units of Hearthguard or like 2 units of Hearthguard in the Warlord. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting in front of my opponent with 3 fatigued units.
You're like overextending yourself.
Exactly, right? So like early game, I have now... Exactly. And like my Hearthguard now suddenly are overextended. They now all have fatigue because it's not a fatigue-free charge, which in a way I'm kind of glad it's not. If it was fatigue-free, this would be just bonkers. But so it's now I've got 3 Hearthguard units with fatigue. And now they're going to be kind of easy to kill in that sense. They're kind of just sitting ducks. So unless you can guarantee you're going to blow up whatever you hit, or you have no other option. So I have had to use this actually in one of the games at the North American Championship. I had to use this like round 2 against the Scots because they had pushed so far up on the hill. I had to move them off the hill. And so I just had to kind of eat it and go, I'm going to get kind of beat up on the other end. But I usually wait till like mid to late game when the lines are now kind of interdispersed. I've kind of hurt a little bit of the combat power, and I can kind of really just take a big foothold with like 3 Hearthguard units. They can be down to like three Hearthguard units, 3 Hearthguard in a single unit. Now suddenly perform really well, right? 6 attack dice, not great. But now it's 9 attack dice, right? Yeah. And that's 3 different units doing that. And often the Warlord might be one of these. So I will say I like to use this with the Warlord. Even though he only gets 1 bonus attack dice, it's just the fact that I get to charge him. He has a determination, and then we'll get to the next ability, which I can't wait to talk about. And so often the Warlord becomes part of this piece mid to late game, and that's when I like to see Flying Wedge show up. And like I said, you're running Hearthguard, so you're going to be getting 6, 7 Saga dice all the way down to the wire, or at least I do. And so waiting on that rare, it'll still probably show up mid to late game, unless I've just kind of had a really disastrous round 1 and 2. And so that's where I would say I prefer to use it mid to late game once the lines have got in and I need to do something big. And Flying Wedge is big. So it's going to move a lot of pieces. It's going to have a lot of melee, and your round's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah. Probably like do some stuff, and then you're going to fire the crossbows, and you're like, oh, I still got my 3rd charge here. Oh, okay,
I still got my 3rd charge. And you're like, and then the Warlord's still going to go and go again.
Yeah.
There are rounds where I've had like a levy shoot and then like 6 charges in a round, and you go, holy freaking cow, what just happened? But it's really good. So I will say that. Do I think it's really strong. It is extremely strong, but you have to be able to kind of load it when and I would say the warriors, as we talked about, like I run Hearthguard. This is where I see the warriors coming in, running like a 6-pack of warriors, a 12-pack of warriors. They benefit from this really well. The mounted units really get to kind of show up on the table and fly across the board. So Flying Wedge is well named. Big units of mounted warriors, big units of mounted Hearthguard, foot hurt. Anybody benefits from this really well. But I prefer to use it at like mid to late game because I don't want to overextend too early.
Yeah. So, like you say, it's kind of, if you're going to leave yourself exposed, in some aspect, 3 melees, it's going to be 3 fatigues. Although there's a couple ways to get around that. It's just easier to leave warriors exposed, especially if they're foot warriors, close ranks or whatever, you can leave them hanging, they're just warriors. They'll be fine,
they'll be fine. And if they aren't, whatever.
Yeah. But then, I think we kind of talked about it at the event, even where this is kind of like the finishing move or the late game closer where the units, their units are depleted, your units are depleted, but you're going to pop this, you're going to fight as if you're not depleted and potentially wipe out 2 or 3 units, just kind of seal the deal here at the end. There's nothing to leave exposed, at the units, just later the game, the less, opportunities are going to have to punk you or jump these units after the melee. So, awesome ability here, but as we'll see, Montjoy Saint-Denis. So a rare here, remove all your warlords' fatigues, then activate them for a charge that generates no fatigue. So even going back to the preview episode, this was my ability I wanted to call out to everybody's attention here. But it's good looking at it, but just once you see it in gameplay, just like how good this actually is, becomes relevant. So why don't we talk about, is this where the first rare's going, Brit?
Yes. Every single time if I get a rare, the most important rare, and this is there's some other discussions we can have as we get through this. This is probably, I would say, arguably the most important rare in this book. Because it drives the whole warband. In this, I would say in Age of Chivalry, this might be the most useful rare because, like I said, I lead with my warlord from the front with 5 points of Hearthguard around him. I want him taking as many casualties as he can soak up.
Just absorbing with his resilience,
Exactly. He's armor 5. He's absorbing resilience, so he's really able to do a lot. And this ability allows you to charge him and then decide what you want to do, right? So I can charge him in. I don't take any hits. He has 1 fatigue from the melee. I might choose to just determination charge or flying wedge charge him because he's got Hearthguard around. So if something bad happens, okay. I can kind of pull the Hearthguard, but he's still armor 5, so he's always hard to hit. And then all of a sudden he ends exhausted. Now I go, well, now is the chance, right? Or if something bad, right, I charge a unit and I just take a bunch of hits by accident. Montjoy Saint-Denis becomes kind of the answer to just clear those fatigue and refresh him. And the unit you just charged has a fatigue on them. So you can choose to Montjoy Saint-Denis in and lower their armor and blow that unit off the table. Or you can choose to raise your armor and you just kind of stand right in front of them and you probably didn't take too many hits, if any.
Just to go from exhausted to...
I've had that happen where,
just be fresh.
The worst thing you can do is leave like a little unit too close to an exhausted French warlord, right? The idea that like if my opponent has done all this work to get my warlord down, which I've had it happen against one of our local players here. He left like a little like 3-man mounted warrior unit, like just inside range. And if he would have been out of range, I couldn't have used Montjoy Saint-Denis to clear my fatigue, and I did the charge just to refresh the warlord because he probably would have been able to kill my warlord the next round. So this ability, like I said, my warlord's kind of in the middle of all that Hearthguard, just kind of charge here, and then Montjoy Saint-Denis, or charge, then Montjoy Saint-Denis, and your goal is either put fatigue on the opponent for your Hearthguard to then come in, do kind of the final kill, or he's the one that's going to hit a single unit, and you're just hoping that like 8 attack dice, even if they're closing ranks, they're going to be spending saga abilities. They're going to be doing a lot of things. And you're soaking a lot of fatigue. So this is kind of your answer to the big shooters. You do have a way to kind of do what shooters do, is that you're not taking damage when you're attacking. So
yeah, and this is good for the big warrior units, or I guess there's even some levy out there of the enemy just closing ranks, you know, so they got the defenses up, they can take a hit, but I'm just going to hit you, you know. That's my 8 attacks, you know. If you want to close ranks, use your defensive abilities or not, that's fine. Yeah, I'll come in again. You just kind of plinking away at those. So it seems like a lot of warbands have a decent defensive ability that will combo with closing ranks. So this is a way to kind of go through it. Do they pop it or not? You've still got the Hearthguarder waiting to go. A lot of times you could just do that attrition damage with the Warlord. And, you know, the downside on the surface is after the second fight, your Warlord is going to have some fatigues or potentially exhausted. But as we'll see, just the next 2 abilities down make that not necessarily be the case. And like you said, take your armor up, just fight a melee just to clear the exhaustion, and maybe end with 1 or 2, but you're surrounded also by a bunch of Hearthguards. And it's really that downside isn't that big of a downside.
Yeah.
How do you play? So, you know, the first turn 2 play or whatever is obvious, where you charge in, play this, and then charge in again. But when you start your turn exhausted with a Warlord, how are you like thinking about this ability? Would you just like use it to clear him and charge once, or do you? I don't know. How do you, when your Warlord starts the turn exhausted, but there's a lot of juicy targets around? Like, how does that like mechanically and the way you spend your dice?
So I will say Montjoy Saint Denis then becomes priority, right? Sometimes Montjoy Saint Denis, there's not a certain place for it, right? You go, I don't want to spend it this round. It's not valuable to me this round to do this. So I might charge my Warlord, let him sit. Don't use Montjoy Saint Denis. He's got 1 or 2 fatigue. I'm not scared with 5 points of Hearthguard. But when you start exhausted, then you are really in danger, right? At that point, your Warlord, he's starting around exhausted. You've got to figure out how to clear it. I might even rest him and move him. But if I have Montjoy Saint Denis, I'm looking for a target, and then I'm kind of trying to wrap him with Hearthguard, right? So if he's kind of in the middle of the line, I want to charge something. Most people, like we talked about this age, they close ranks. So 10 attacks becomes 5. That's manageable. 1, 2 hits isn't too overwhelming. So you might end up with 1 or 2 fatigue at the end of like a charge, but I've now got him not exhausted, which is really helpful. So that is kind of the priority. Always the Warlords, I never want them with more than like 1 to 2. 2 fatigue is scary, but it's okay. 3 fatigue is like, just like, I'm probably going to lose my Warlord and I'm not going to be able to stop it. So that's kind of the way this works. This is priority for the Warlord just to clear him.
Yeah. That sounds good to me. And like I said, I kind of lead with the Warlord too, kind of see the result of the 2 melees, and then make sure you have activations with Hearthguard or something just to kind of plug the gaps or screen if necessary, or just get them into bodyguard range. Just lead with the Warlord if you can. I like fun. That. Yeah, I'm not gonna any warband that does that is okay in my book. So. Too many people cowering with them Warlords in the back. Get them out front.
No. If you play the French and he's not right there in the line or leading the line, go play something else. Not to be too mean about it. That's we want to lead with the Warlord. He's too cool to not. And this ability is probably one of the most thematic, cool abilities in the game. And it can get you out of a lot of trouble. Every once in a while you lose a Warlord on this board. It just happens. So.
That's right. Yeah, because you're going to be charging out, probably out of bodyguard's range, unless things have been set up a certain way. So, sometimes your opponent, 7 attacks, they hit 5 times. You fail all 5, even with the knighthood up or whatever, and you're like... Oh, well, that was the end of that.
That was that. It was fun, though. It was fun.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. just gonna be cognizant of that. But this next ability down here is basically how you can kind of get around a downside of the second melee here. So you could do the Montjoy Send. You can fight, take your fatigues, do the Montjoy Send a knee, and then in your second fight, if you're kind of cleaning something up here, you don't take a hit, and you pop Pledge of Battle here for a common or uncommon, and you suffer 1 less fatigue at the end of the melee. So if you play your cards right, you could even just have a completely fresh Warlord at the end of the melee. But also good for Hearthguard. I don't know. Disproportionately, it seems like any ability which removes the fatigue is just doubly good on a Hearthguard unit. So, yeah, I don't know. When I played him, I always use this just as a veteran Saga player. Just avoiding that step of the melee seems to be good enough for me.
Yeah, the on the Warlord is good. I'll say this as I talk about. I run a lot of Hearthguard. Having 1, maybe 2 fatigues on my Warlord isn't the worst thing if he has bodyguards in range and he can close ranks and do all that stuff, right? But Hearthguard with 1 fatigue, in this board, you have to manage fatigue. You've got to manage fatigue on this board. It's probably the priority, right? As I talked about using Montjoy Saint Denis, it's to clear fatigue. It's more about a fatigue clear than it is about anything else, because Hearthguard with fatigue will inevitably die. That's just how kind of this game works. Hearthguard are really good until they get too much fatigue, and then they're just gone. And so Pledge of Battle, I often use it where like the Warlord charges and he Montjoy St. Denis, and then here's the 6-pack of Hearthguard that shows up, or the 5-pack of Hearthguard, especially if I use like a mounted Hearthguard to charge across the table. Well, they're out of position. Well, they're out of position, but they're fresh. So in order for somebody to charge them, it's going to hurt, right? So I get to charge, make a good charge, and then you've got to charge me back, and you don't have any fatigue to do anything with. So you're going to take, if it's a 5-pack of Hearthguard, you're going to take 10 hits in their armor 5. So it works really well. So that's where I prefer to use it to the Hearthguard. The Warlord does get the nod every once in a while. If he's out of position, the Warlord has no Hearthguard. This is a must. But Hearthguard every day. That's where I feel like this goes. It's a common, which is great. Common or uncommon.
Another common.
It's also... But it's attacker only, right? So you can't do it after you defend. It's only when you attack. So that's kind of one of the specifiers. You've got to be aggressive with this warband, and it pays you to be aggressive.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing wrong with that one. Coming down, armed and armored, 2 die, 2 uncommons. Gain 3 attack or 3 defense for if a Hearthguard unit. So gain 4 attack or 4 defense dice. And then your opponent must discard 3 attack dice. So you can have a little attack, little defense, or just go super heavy on the defensive side of things. So it is a 2-die ability here, and there's a lot of other kind of juicy must trigger abilities if you can, or load them up. So are you getting this off as much as you like?
Not as much as I want. I wish I did it more often. It's kind of am I going to do a flying wedge this round, or am I going to do an armed and armored this round? Flying wedge being that we're going to do a full assault. We're going to drop 9 extra dice.
Am I going to do 3 separate charges, or am I just going to go for the big one? So I think, go for one souped up charge. I don't know. Anytime you can make the opponent discard dice makes me happy.
And for Hearthguard, right, as we talked about, kind of the killer of Hearthguard, that levy unit that's got like 3-4 attack dice always hit you once and kills. Well, this kind of goes, hold on. I'm going to gain some attack dice, or I can give myself defense dice if I know I'm going to win this melee with like the raw power. I can give myself some defense dice and remove your dice. So on the attack, it's really good. Or like we kind of joke, like in the game you and I played, my levy sitting in hard cover suddenly became kind of a rock.
Yeah,
because it was taking away your attack dice, and it was giving me 3 dice when I could close rank. So now, on a good defensive, if I need to hold ground with the Hearthguard unit, or even as we kind of joked, a levy unit sitting in a hard cover, this is a super solid. Take away 3 of their dice. If I'm a Hearthguard unit, I get 4 defense dice. Closing ranks, 4 defense dice is good enough.
Yeah.
But now I get to take 3 of your attacks away. So it's kind of this huge swing of like 7 dice suddenly swap around on the board if I'm closing ranks with Hearthguard. And so,
definitely,
yeah, it's kind of
can shut down one melee completely.
Yep.
But and you can kind of combine this too with the panoply. You could have a super attack or a super charge. So even though there's kind of a lot of interesting abilities that aren't like raw attacks, you can still get it with the wedge, armed and armored, and panoply. You could have just a super crazy Hearthguard 15 16 attack dice charge re-rolling, absolutely blow something off the table. So it's nice to have that in your pocket.
It's if you really want to go all out, this board does say like you can have like 2 or 3 charges that are just wild. I have used it on the Warlord when the Warlord's the one that's got to do the, you hit them, then you Montjoy Saint Denis, then you dropped arm and armor on the second one because you could lower their armor because you put a fatigue on them. And so now they're like armor 3 warriors, and now you're dropping, 11 attack dice. And they're also discarding, they're probably closing ranks, so now you're not even taking a hit with the Warlord. So it has a really good place. And often when you play Armored Armor, they're going to want to close ranks if they see it loaded. So,
that's cool. And if you're talking like you're kind of maintaining your Saga dice better than the opponents. A lot of times these 2-die abilities can kind of drop off towards the mid game for many factions where lost a few Saga dice, and then the facing on the dice becomes very important. And sometimes you only have 2 commons or something like that. And you're like, well, I got to activate my warriors. But so you got a bunch of Saga dice, and then the Hearthguard, they can activate on anything. So, a lot of the times you're going to have like all these abilities are still viable, and you can still, it's up to you to choose, which you're going to do. But so you don't get locked out of many abilities like some warbands will as the match goes on. So because I remember turn 4 or 5 when I was running the Hearthguard French, and this would be the ability that I would use like on those end turns. So it's just kind of interesting. Yeah, this kind of flips the script a little bit in Saga. All right, the big boy. Maybe I was paying attention. Probably should have started with this one here to kind of set the stage for everything.
We talked about it the whole time. Yeah.
Warrior's ability using a common die till the start of your next turn. Your Hearthguard units get resilience 1 in melee and resilience 2 against shooting attacks. However, Brit, they make all their moves and charges with the single S measuring stick, or medium if they're mounted on the unbarded horses. So if you do take the barding, they go down to an S. So it's a fairly big downside. You'd be surprised how the difference there, adds up, or even just on how the number of plays shrink dramatically when you go from that M to that S stick. So so I did, but kind of managing this ability is key, because I don't think you don't want to use this every turn necessarily, or do you? What are your kind of thoughts
I have
on this one?
A couple different quick thoughts on it. Is I kind of joke, once you put your foot on this pedal, you're going to be kind of stuck with it for a little while, unless you can clear the fatigue, right? Because once you give your Hearthguard a bunch of fatigue, you're kind of stuck with like, okay, now I'm in this realm of like I'm balancing 2 fatigue. The board doesn't have a fatigue removal. That's just basically remove a fatigue.
Yeah.
And so you're going to kind of bury yourself. But where I really like this, and this is actually kind of what happened in our game, is against shooters, this is really good, because you get to choose, right? It's especially when we now have full harness and we talk about tenacity, we talk about some of these other abilities that if you don't take casualties, you get extra defense dice. Well, now I get to choose when and how I take a casualty. That to me is the big part about full harness. Going S is really tough, but if I've already got up to my objective and I'm now in the melee and I have like 3 or 4 units in this melee, this is okay to turn on, right? Especially mid game is when I like to kind of turn it on, is I know I'm going to get kind of hit really hard and I don't quite know where this is going to come from. Or I'm going to get a bunch of shooting. That's where I prefer to use full harness, is that I'm kind of facing a gun line. I'm facing somebody that's got like 2 or 3 shooter units, or just a lot of really good solid shooting. Well, now I'm resilience 2, so they have to hit 2 successful hits on like an armor 5 unit. Now, if they're crossbow, it's armor 4, right? They're getting on +1. But 6 attacks, armor 4, they're going to hit 3 times. I'm probably going to save 1 to 2 of those if I have extra dice. This basically ensures if things go bad, I can save the unit. And so that's where I really like this, is it's a really good, like, and I might choose to just take the casualty and not put a fatigue on.
Yeah, that's the key kind of thing, I think, if you're the French player trying to wrap your head around, is you do not have to take it unless you
don't
want.
have to.
I don't know. Can you explain like a situation where?
Yeah.
So kind of tight. Yeah. But yeah.
So I will say, so it actually happened in the game you and I played. It happened. I played Adam Trunzo. I played him the start of the 4th round. There are times when I have like, say, like when you were shooting at me, I decided, I kind of looked at the points on the table and I said, okay, like I know we had a low point game, but even if it was a high point game, I looked at it as I had activated full harness. You shot me. I think you got 4 hits through. I think I saved 2 of them. Well, I didn't want to take 2. Or no, never mind. Sorry, we're going the other direction. Never mind. So I ended up taking the fatigue in that one to save the 2. But I know I've done it before, and I'm trying to think of like a time.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It's kind of tough, because it crops up.
I know like I've done it, but I can't think of the exact moment.
Frequently, do you leave them exhausted or not? I think that's kind of like a tipping point. You would prefer 5 Hearthguard with 2 fatigues versus 6 Hearthguard with 3 fatigues for that exhaustion. I think that's kind of a tipping point.
That's fair.
An example. But when you take the fatigues, you have to deal with them on your next turn. So if you want to attack with that unit in the next turn, it just kind of the calculus and stuff gets a little complicated because you have less figures, so your attack won't be as strong, but your opponent can short it or cancel it, or it becomes trickier to kind of manage that. What's that?
Yeah. Or that's the other issue, is a lot of times when I played French and I've now buried myself in fatigue because of full harness, I charge and I have 2 fatigue and they go, yeah, I'll let that come in. And then they just don't close ranks with like a warrior unit. And now they basically get like a 10 warrior unit that gets to attack your Hearthguard unit and bring you down to armor 3. So I will say, I can't remember, now I think about it, I can't remember a specific, but I know I've done it where I take like 1 casualty through. When I get 2 casualties, that's to me when the fatigue looks really good. Right. This unit's going to go from a 5-man unit down to a 3-man unit. That's a really, in the early stages, that's not a great Hearthguard unit. That's going to have to wait till late game to come back. And so taking 1 fatigue for 2 shots is really helpful. But if it's 1 shot, often I just let it go through. I run like a 6-pack, a 5-pack, a 5-pack, and a 4-pack. And you just kind of, that 6-pack went down to a 5-pack. That's not so scary. That 5-pack went down to a 4-pack. That's when I would say it kind of matters. I don't like to do it too much in melee unless I am holding ground and it's late game and the fatigue doesn't matter, right? If we're last round, I'll take all the fatigue I can.
It kind of makes a difference when, if it's you're taking 6 casualties versus 1, I'm just gonna, we got to survive or whatever. But it's the 1 because it triggers the panoply, and then if you're using Pledge of Battle, you could end the turn with no fatigues. If you just take the casualty, you could the benefit of the panoply and use Pledge of Panel to wipe the 1 fatigue that you got. So versus having a fresh unit that can't trigger the juicy panoply bonus and still has 1 fatigue because you suffered 1 to cancel casualty, 1 for the fight, and you remove 1 for Pledge of Battle. So there's definitely another one's objective scenarios where if you are exhausted, you can't contest it. So that's a pretty
that's where it hurt me.
That's a good learning one there.
Unfortunately, but I will say I use it a lot. So it's not to say like it's not all bad, it's not all good, right? The negatives are huge on this one. The positives are just as good. So if I have 4 units that are all Hearthguard, they all now have resilience, right? So now my whole board, my Warlord, my Hearthguard units, they have resilience, and that's really hard for a single round for anybody to kind of punch through. They don't know which direction to go. It's not great for them, so it makes a very hard choice for the other player. And so that's where I would say full harness really does a good job of making the game kind of really, you add an extra mental load to your opponent. It might be round 3 or round 4, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and then I just pop full harness, and they go, great, nowhere is a good angle to attack you at now. That unit had 1 fatigue, but now you might be able to just slough the two casualties. So it's really good. It is super thematic. The full harness, the French Knights just marching up to an enemy and then just kind of crushing down on them. I use it for that a lot. If it's like I'm starting L and you're L and the objective's like right in front of us, I'll just slowly march up with full harness and then get in the melee. So it's good. I like it a lot. So
yeah, this is the key here for the Hearthguard for sure. So all right. Well, last one here on the board, kind of combos, kind of doesn't here full harness, but orders ability, common or uncommon till the end of the turn. Your mounted heroes and Hearthguard units get a bonus of medium to their charge distance, but cannot be activated to move. So this one applies to the heroes, so I always got kind of confused over that. Does a Warlord get resilience too against the shooting or not? It's just the Hearthguard.
Just the Hearthguard.
So, and this one does not stack with full harness. So if you have a cavalry unit, it will charge medium if it is unbarded, basically. So this doesn't really stack with it. So on some terms, though, you might be. So now you kind of have a decision. I've kind of found where I'm going to do a prowess for some juicy long charges, or am I going to do the full harness to survive my opponent's turn? You're kind of going to have to weigh the damage you do here. So how do you think about this ability? You're just running like one mounted unit. Typically.
Typically, right? Okay. I do have a mounted warlord,
and a mounted warlord
because we did a lot of. And so like I will say I do have mounted options for this warband, but because of the scenarios that I've mostly played the French with, and kind of as we talked about the current meta and sagas, a lot of objective hold scenarios. Being foot just really leans well.
Ranks,
but the ability to reach out and like just jump on somebody to change the tide of battle. I can think about the best moment I probably used this, and I kind of got really lucky after I did it. But I played Adam Trunzo in one of the games, and he had like the kind of the infamous 2 9-packs of crossbow levy, just kind of holding on the flanks and shooting, which for this army is actually kind of scary because like I'm doing all this melee in the middle, and then this unit's just kind of raining in shots. Well, I took my, and it's a 9-pack of levy. If you can get to them, you blow them up. That's kind of the beauty of them. They shoot really well, and so we see that a lot. And so suddenly my mounted unit can really go after those guys. And so this really helps. And so like in that case, what I did is he had that 9-pack of shooters that were just out of range of my foot guys, but that extra M, my mounted Hearthguard, which is like I run them in a 5-pack so they can drop like 10 dice somewhere, maybe an armored charge, right? Or we talk about Flying Wedge. Flying Wedge now comes back into play, right? So I pop prowess, do Flying Wedge. That 5-pack of Hearthguard now gets to charge L plus M and drops like 13 dice on something, which a 9-pack of levy, they're armor 3, right? So that's kind of the beauty of that. So I'm going to hit it really hard, and I'm going to be able to reach it really far. So my guys are protected. They're out of range. And so this is the whole reason I had at least one mounted unit. They always just hung out in the back, just waiting.
Yeah, so this ability, you're going to win the deployment game as the French just by having this ability. If you just have a mounted unit or even warlord, one mounted, and then like maybe a third mounted unit, so your opponent really has to, you've covered the entire line. They have to, if you want to come across first turn, you can, whether you're first player or second player. So you have to deploy accordingly. You have to respect, that what could have happened here. I've got the 3 dice. Well, if I don't roll an uncommon, he's going to see that. He's going to come across. So even if you never trigger this, your opponent always has to be worried about it. Just kind of always thinking. So yeah, especially that early game, especially where you can afford to not have the full harness up if you're just kind of hanging back a little bit more, and just launch something somewhere. Is just wild. Yeah. So just another kind of ability there to mess with your opponent.
And it's Hearthguard. So as we talk about why do I run so much Hearthguard, here's another reason, right? There's like 3-4 abilities that just, if you're Hearthguard, they're only available to you. And if you're Hearthguard, they're better for you. And so prowess becomes kind of this, like you said, it's just another tool. There are times I've been fighting in a game where like I need you to look to the left because I'm kind of getting beat up over here on the right, And so if I can just fly that Hearthguard unit over there, it's a really juicy target for you, right? Like a mounted Hearthguard unit to shooters is kind of like a auto, I have to take that unit, you've given it to me. Well, I need my warlord to stay alive over here, and I'm in a really bad position. I might just fly that mounted Hearthguard unit over to the other side of the table to force you to look that way, so I can kind of just rest down some of the fatigue, and I'm giving up that Hearthguard unit. But that's okay, because it's part of the plan. And that's where I say prowess is such it's a game changer. Like you said, it's going to affect their deployment. I can kind of really change the tide of battle. I can charge through my own line with this unit that's not quite in the combat. It's super fun. And like I said, if you have all mounted Hearthguard, which I think somebody did run it, flying red with prowess, and you're jumping, it's super cool.
Yeah, if you could definitely do that. It just kind of gives you another tool, another very nice tool to have in the toolbox. And you can send anything anywhere. We can do the supercharge, if we want. We could spread out, do 3 or 4 charges. We just get the warlord in. At the end of the turn, the warlord is no worse for wear and killed 5 or 6 guys, and you're like, okay, well, I'm in the lead now. What are you gonna do? I still got all my stuff here queued up. So great warband. So you like to run the Levy crossbow, and so why does that kind of the crossbow versus just running all Hearthguard? How does that kind of change the dynamic?
So this maybe speaks to just chivalry, right? We talk about the power of crossbow, having that +1, but it just gives you, there's a couple different thoughts. And so I'll say one, it's a huge threat. A lot of my warbands foot, and so something that can shoot L is very good. You can kind of move it up and shoot. It's +1. It does really well, right? Levy crossbow, they're just good on their own. They inherently bring something great with them. The fact that I can add auto hits, even to them, is still pretty good. And I guess I'm trying to say it also kind of gives me more tools. So if I ran 6 points of Hearthguard, I'm locked to doing just the foot or mounted. I don't have any other threats. And then kind of the second thought here is also if I need to add fatigue to something, which there is nothing better. The French warband is really good at killing warlords. And it's for a lot of different reasons, is because you have Montjoy Saint Denis. So you can cycle charge, which we kind of use the term cycle charge. I charge you to put a fatigue on you just for the sake of putting a fatigue on you. And so I can charge a warlord, and then I can Montjoy Saint Denis in. But if I can add a Levy crossbow shot in the middle of that, right? So I charge, see what I did? I put 1, maybe 2 fatigue. The crossbow can shoot. Now I put 1 more fatigue on you, then I Montjoy Saint Denis in, and I kill the warlord. And so it becomes this like part of the puzzle that just helps. And I will also say, as a French player, I don't like to jump into a 12-pack of warriors with my warlord, because there's always that random event that happens where you just take 8-9 hits and they rolled 8-9 5s for no freaking reason. And so having that Levy crossbow to soften that unit up a little bit, right? Now bring it down to a 10-pack, right? So he's now going to want to probably close ranks instead of stay open, which means my warlord can be more effective, right? When they have like 12 attack dice plus, that's very scary territory for a warlord. to charge into. And so that's what that kind of levy does. It adds like 2 or 3 big factors. It allows me to kind of cycle stuff. It allows me to soften things up. And then it's also just an L threat on the table that I maybe don't have with a foot warband. So it's kind of why I like them in there. Yeah, it's solid. So
yeah, I think it definitely opens up your options. And this is kind of why I see adding a warrior unit as well could be good, either instead of the levy or in addition to the levy. Because it's kind of keeping your options open. You know, if you're all Hearthguard, that full harness applies to every unit you have, that penalty. And then the prowess downside applies to all the mounted units as well. So if you can have a mounted unit that doesn't, follow, that doesn't get the downsides, I think there's enough on there where a big warrior unit or something like that could be valuable when everything's fatigued out with full harness. You've still got a warrior unit. They're just kind of following the normal rules of the game. Take a fatigue or, so just having another tool in the toolbox where you can kind of maintain the full harness, but still get a long charge off or something like that. So just a unit that can avoid the downside could be good. But as we've seen now, just running mostly Hearthguard, nothing wrong with that either. So, do you? I think you have fun playing this warband for sure. How do you see opponents and kind of the resilience? Because some, it can be a while before you actually like remove a figure as a casualty, which can be a moral. Low morale experience for the opponent if they can't stick there to the long game. And so do people have trouble against this warband, or what do you think?
And so I got quite a few games in with them now. I think there's two things that end up happening, right? So I will say a couple of games where I'm just getting a lot of rares, which I joke about a lot with the French. For some reason, the Saga gods, and it's probably because it's a French game, and they
the blue dice, man.
French.
Yeah, if you got those red dice, get rid of them. Get the blue dice. Yeah.
And they just roll so many rares. So like watching your opponent have to deal with Montjoy Saint Denis from like round 2 to round 5 or 6, which I've had happen a couple different games. It is completely demoralizing to them to watch this warlord just kind of have free reign, right? Like I'm not even charging Hearthguard some rounds where it's just like warlord charges. Then I Montjoy Saint Denis. Then I kind of like do a determination charge. And suddenly this warlord is just causing all kinds of havoc. And nothing's dying on my side of the table, right? They're shooting at stuff. Nothing's dying. And so it can be, I will say this, like there are games I played where I don't get a rare, and you have to be ready as a French player to not have a rare. It happens. I've played games where I've gone like 4 or 5 rounds and I've got a rare to the last round, which is also really fun. And it's maybe a little bit more enjoyable experience for the other player. But the French can be really tough, right? They can kind of hold ground. They're hard to move. You don't really get to kill a lot of models, even though you're killing Hearthguard and they're worth a lot of points, right? I may have killed 3 levy, but you didn't kill anything until like round 3.
There's definitely like a tipping point, and even though you haven't killed anything, if there's like 17 fatigue markers on the French side of the table, it's tough for the French player to kind of work through that and manage that and still kind of have an active turn without the Montjoy Saint Denis play. So
even then, right? It's still hard.
Even then, if he's exhausted to start the turn, the options are that's the dramatically one thing I'm reduced. Yep.
Those are the games. If you can bury the French in fatigue, which is not a bad. It's not fun because you're doing charges and you're shooting and you're doing all this.
Steven
on them.
Finally, with the Germans there towards the last round there, it seems. I'm sure there's a lot of things, but putting fatigues on, handgunners, just putting the fatigue on.
That I will say a couple things. This is also the other side of playing the French. I will say as a French player, you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to have games that you're going to win in a very dominant fashion. You're also going to have games that you lose in a completely disastrous fashion. Because as we talk about Hearthguard, right? I have a 5-pack of Hearthguard. Sometimes dice just don't go well, and the whole unit gets deleted. You go, well, there went that unit, and I now get a fatigue bomb. in my whole army,
yeah.
which is very close. And so that's kind of the thing with the French is that's why for me the number one rule with French is you've got to manage fatigue, because the fatigue bomb is inevitable. It'll probably happen at some point, and if you already have like 1 or 2 fatigue on everything, now everything's exhausted and your game's over, right? They're gonna just blow that unit up, blow that unit up, blow that unit up, and there goes the French. So like if you're playing French and you get that opportunity and you just clean their clock, like you had a fun game. The French player did not. So
right, yeah,
I think it's
sides of that coin there. I think
Mm-hmm.
just kind of the way that just the resilience rules. It's all or nothing, you know. So sometimes it's all, sometimes it's nothing, you know. So awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. Talking about this warband is definitely something that I'm interested in and will be running at some point, either just for fun or at an event or something. I do just like that idea of all Hearthguard. So, you know, it's just
fun.
It's alluring as someone who plays a lot of Saga. You don't often get a chance to do that. So very, very cool. I do want to go ahead and thank Sean, Patrick, Brit. That's you. You're Brit. DJ, Katsune, Cruz, Damian, Robin, Mitch, and the rest of the Saga Thursday patrons. Wouldn't be doing a video every week in 2026. This is the first recorded video of 2026. Brit, congratulations.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, wouldn't be doing it without the patrons and their support. So thank you, everybody. Definitely comment below if you've got any thoughts about what you've heard. Maybe tips for playing against the French. Maybe throw those down there. I'm trying to keep the chat here pro-French if I can. So we'll save that for the comments. Or if you have any other ideas about anything, I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Brit, thank you again for coming on. I think this will be it for this one. I'm sure we haven't seen the last of you. If you haven't yet, definitely, folks, check out Strategicon of Saga podcast. Wherever you get podcasts, is that the location, right?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere. It's hosted on... why can I not remember? Oh my goodness, I have lost my brain. Is it just like on Spotify or
Spotify?
It's on Spotify, but it's on pretty much everything else. So if you tell me you want it on a different thing, I'll figure out how to make an account and put it on there too. So it's pretty much everywhere.
Podcasts, they seem to show up on stuff that you're like, I don't even have anything to do with this, and then my podcast is on there. I don't quite understand or know how that works, but cool. Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to more Strategicon of Saga in 2026. I've done a few different topics I found interesting, and keep it going, buddy. But that'll be it for this one. We'll talk to you later, folks. Have a good one. Bye. Saga. If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.